Okay, so now in this example, we're going to convert these fractions to decimals. Now the first one we're going to go to till it terminates. Okay, so this terminates. These two do not terminate, so we're going to round these to the nearest thousandths. Now, you can also do this in your calculator, and again, please make sure that you know how to do this stuff in your calculator, okay? So let's do the first one. Again, we're going to make the division. So the first step says put a decimal point at the end. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently because it's the same steps. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up as a division problem because that's what the fractional bar means, right? As one interpretation. It can be interpreted as division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the top divided by the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to do 7 divided by 8. And now I'm going to do the long division. So 8 doesn't go into 7, but this is where I put the decimal point, right? This is why they tell you to put the decimal point in the numerator. But always remember from before, remember in the previous videos, that if you have a whole number, there's always assumed to be a decimal point at the end. Okay? So you put the decimal point here, and now, since 8 doesn't go into 7, we have to go to the next place value. So I'm going to put a 0 here, and then of course ignore the decimal point, because I'm going to treat this as 70. Now, this is where I'm going to raise the decimal point up here to keep my numbers in the right place value. So, now if you want to put a 0 here, that's fine. It doesn't really matter if there's a 0 before the decimal point. So 8 goes into 70 how many times? 8 times, right? So then 8 times 8 is 64. And then you subtract, and then you get 6. And now you're going to put another 0 here, and you're going to drop down. And then 8 goes into 60 7 times. And so 8 times 7 is 56. Subtract the 56, and we get 4. And then we drop another 0, so we got to put another 0 down and drop that one. So 8 goes into 45 times. So 8 times 5 is 40. And then we subtract, and we get 0, and we're done. So the decimal equivalent to 7/8 is 0.875. And we're done. Now, let's do a third. Now, some of you might know what this does. It is a decimal. And if you do, that's fine. That's more power to you. So, but let's do this and say, okay, let's put the decimal point, right? We got this, the decimal point is always assumed at the end of any whole number. So we're going to write this as 1 divided by 3, right? And so we're going to put the decimal point here and then raise it up on a vertical line. And now what we're going to do is 3 doesn't go into 1, so 0. So we're going to go to the next decimal point, put a 0, or the next place value, put a 0, and now we're going to say, okay, now we're going to ignore the decimal and look at this as 10. So 3 goes into 10 3 times, and then 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, we get 1 again. Now this is where you should stop and pause for a minute and say, well, I started with 1, and I had to add 0. So in this case here, I'm going to add another 0 and then drop down, and I get the same value. I start with 10 here, I get 10 again, which means this is going to keep repeating itself. So 3 goes into 10 3 times, and so what you notice is this is going to be a repeating decimal. It's just going to keep going 3 3 3 3 3, because if I subtract 9 again, I get 1, and it's going to just keep going. So, this is where we round to the nearest thousandths. So we know that this is going to go to the tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000ths. So now what we do is, since we're rounding to the nearest thousandths, we look at the digit to the right, and it's 4 or less. So that means this is going to go away, and we keep the 3 unchanged. And so the approximate decimal is 0.333, rounded to the nearest thousandth. Now let's do 4/11ths. Same sort of thing. Let's do that. Oops, wrong way. And so now I'm going to put the decimal point here, raise it up. Now I'm going to put a 0 here because 11 does not go into 4. So if you want to put your 0 up there, that's fine because then 11 times 0 is 0 and it doesn't change anything. So then 11 goes in the 40 3 times, gives us 33 and gives us a remainder of 7. And of course, put another 0 in here and drop it down. And then we get 11 goes into 76 times, and then this is going to be 66, right? 11 times 6, 66, and this is going to give us 4 again. Now look, now that's what we started with. Now again, this is where we pause and say, well, wait a minute. We started with 4, and now we've got 4 again. So now this tells me that this is going to repeat. So this is going to repeat 3, 6, 3, 6 over and over again. So again, we're going to round this to the nearest thousandths. And so since this, we're rounding to the nearest thousandths here, and since the digit to the right is 5 or bigger, we're going to take the 3 and we're going to raise it up by 1 digit, and we're going to get rid of the 6. We're going to drop everything to the right. And so this is rounded to 0.364, and that is the approximate decimal, equivalent decimal. And that's how you do it. Have a great day.